Police have made a second arrest now in a string of shootings that erupted in Old South Baton Rouge last month.
A second man is behind bars for a 2016 murder that led to a series of what police said were retaliation shootings.
Men accused of killing a teenager 8 months ago have escaped formal charges. It's a decision made by a grand jury.
From the scene, we learned he was on his bike. He's traveling home because he lived directly down the street.
Detective Johnson is talking about 18-year-old Keandre Ricks. He was just about a block away from his house on Nebraska Street in Baton Rouge in the early morning hours of November 2nd, 2016. He'd never make it back.
Peep game. Old South Baton Rouge sits in a part of the city where people learn the pace of the block before they ever learn to drive. It's a place where houses are close, poachers stay busy, and everybody grows up recognizing the kind of energy that can shift a whole hood in seconds. Kids watch the older dudes hustle on the corners. Teens time their movements around who's outside. Adults keep their eyes open because experience has taught them that the same street that raised them can also turn dark without warning. That was the world that shaped the story of 18-year-old Keandre Ricks, aka Bbg Boozilla, long before his name ever hit a headline. Back in 2016, months before anything fatal happened, his name first reached the public record. It was a cold January night at McKinney High School during a basketball game. Families were inside cheering, coaches were pacing the sidelines, and nobody outside expected anything more than a quiet parking lot. Cameras later showed a different picture. They captured a teenager stepping through the rows of cars, checking which doors are unlocked, moving with the kind of quick confidence that comes from knowing how to make moves without drawing attention. A younger kid walked alongside him. Before the game ended, a woman came outside and found her window broken. One of the referee's wallet was gone. By the time he called the bank, someone had already used his card at a nearby Family Dollar. The clerks looked at the footage and school staff looked at the still shots. The name that came up was Keandre. 12 traced the charges back to him faster than a rockhead changing an alternator for the 30. It wasn't headline material. It was the type of small time lick the hood had seen before. A teenager leaning into the street choices, walking on a line between everyday life and moves that pulled him deeper into risk. That same year, another name started ringing, floating around the city in ways that demanded attention. A 17-year-old named Treshawn Coates. During the summer, that boy was connected to a pawn shop burglary where several firearms disappeared. The talk around the case included heavy statements about tension with officers in the city, and detectives gave themselves a reason to keep an eye on that boy.
Nakamoto spoke to all of the adult suspects' families today. He has much more on what they're saying.
Bridgewater and Thomas's families say they both suffered from mental illness. Both families also say they are followers. That combo proved to be a bad mix when law enforcement foiled a nefarious plan to kill police.
Treshawn Coates is trying to set the record straight about his arrest over the weekend.
I want them to know that my intentions were never to kill no police officer. You know, I never planned on even buying a gun. I never, been to no riot and nothing.
Coates says he was walking down the street when he was approached by a group of kids wanting to sell him some guns.
They said they wanted $90 for the Beretta and they wanted $70 for the 40. And I was like, well, I don't have no money at first, but I was looking at the guns. That's how my fingerprints got on the guns.
When police arrived, the kids took off, and Coates got caught with the 2 stolen weapons the kids were trying to sell. His mom is fuming tonight at law enforcement.
I hope they burn in hell, and that's just that. I hope all of them burn in hell.
Monique White says her son has never been in trouble with law enforcement, something court records confirm. Tonight, we're also getting a better look at the lives of the other 2 suspects, arrested in the foiled attempt to kill officers at protests for Alton Sterling. All of this stemmed from the burglary of the Cash America pawn shop on Government Street Saturday, where 8 weapons were taken. Tuesday, authorities called an impromptu press conference to talk about threats against law enforcement.
Their whole purpose was to use these guns to harm or kill a police officer in the Baton Rouge area.
Federal agents got involved looking for those guns, raiding a house WBRZ filmed exclusively Monday. Antonio Thomas and Malik Bridgewater are implicated in the heist. Annette Vaughn is Thomas's aunt and can't believe he was on the streets.
He was already in a mental institution.
How did he get out?
Exactly. Exactly. They brought him from, I think, Lafayette and brought him back to Baton Rouge, and somehow he got away.
So he just signed himself out, or what?
No, he didn't sign himself off. He walked away.
And they didn't try to catch him to put him back?
No. He's been on the loose for the longest.
Vaughn's not sure if Thomas was capable of carrying out the plan to kill police.
I tried to get him help.
And neither is Kimberly Bridgewater, another relative trying to wake up from a nightmare.
He returned the guns.
After her son Malik was also arrested.
He just moved faster than his brain. Like it don't move the same. He'll probably do something that's crazy and then think about it after the fact.
Bridgewater and Thomas both remain locked up tonight. Both of them are charged with felony burglary for the pawn shop heist and theft of a firearm.
People in the streets knew that the access to those kind of weapons could shift the balance in the hood, especially in the area that was already dealing with deep friction, violence, and bloodshed. No one knew then that his path would cross with Keandre. Both youngins were already moving through the same grimy streets, clutching at heat. As the year pushed toward fall, the weight on the streets didn't let up. By November, Old South Baton Rouge felt thick with street beef and tension. People noticed more police cars driving slow through certain blocks. They noticed clusters of teenagers staying out late. They noticed arguments that turned into gunfire. Nothing stood out enough, though, to point out one specific problem. But the hood had that familiar sense that something deadly was about to happen. It arrived in the earliest minute of November the 2nd, just after midnight. Keandre was riding his bike through the 2000 block of Nebraska Street. It wasn't a special trip. He wasn't on some mission. Was in Washington where the streets say he was headed home for the night. Nebraska Street was new to that boy. He'd been moving along that road since he was younger. And like many who grew up there, he knew every crack in the pavement. But being familiar doesn't always protect you when the wrong people step out at the wrong time. At some point in that stretch of darkness, a confrontation broke out. Neighbors didn't see the beginning. They only heard the shots. When officers arrived, they found Keandre laying in the roadway, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. His bike was nearby. The pavement around him told the story without needing a single witness to speak. He didn't make it to the hospital, though. He didn't get a chance for no last words. The block held the scene until detectives arrived and marked the ground. Another young man lost. Another street left for questions.
He's 18 years old with the rest of his life ahead of him. It wasn't supposed to end before he turned 19, especially in the streets of his own neighborhood.
As Matt Williams shows you in tonight's Crime Stoppers, it's a neighborhood and an environment that his mother is looking to escape.
Shots fired. It's a familiar call to police in Baton Rouge. It just depends on what they find when they get to the scene. Nothing or something life-changing, life-ending.
From the scene, we learned he was on his bike. He was traveling home because he lived directly down the street.
Detective Johnson is talking about 18-year-old Keandre Ricks. He was just about a block away from his house on Nebraska Street in Baton Rouge in the early morning hours of November 2nd, 2016. He'd never make it back. But who shot him and why? Was it robbery?
And what they were robbing him for, he didn't have anything.
I was gonna say.
Everything he got from me.
Nothing on him.
Nothing on him.
And what about witnesses? Police are sure there are those who know, but that familiar roadblock is popping up.
We're quite sure that there was someone out here. They may have seen something, but the code of silence is still there.
It may be, but Keandre's mother isn't having it with that code.
Say what you know instead of trying to hide, like this street code, don't say anything. You a snitch. No, you not a snitch. No, you not. If the shoe was on the other foot, wouldn't you want somebody to say something about your family member if something happened?
And it does, far too often. In fact, for Kinger, the possibilities of something happening dictate her entire day.
I don't let my kids go anywhere. I gotta make sure I'm out from work to make sure I can get them from school and stuff and they don't walk home from school because I'm thinking somebody go try to do them something. That's why I'm trying to get out this neighborhood.
But it's tough, and it just got heartbreaking. Her kids were really close, and it's hard on everybody right now. For Mom, she's still kind of numb.
I am hurting. I'm so hurt. It's like I'm more angry than hurt. I'm more angry about the situation. I can't even really grieve over my own child.
Don't we at least owe her that? The ability to grieve? That can start with one phone call. For Crime Stoppers, Matt Williams, WAFB 9 News.
But the shooting didn't end with his body. Even before the sun came up, the hood was pulled into a chain of violence that moved like falling dominoes. Around 9:30 that morning, just hours after the Nebraska shooting, another man was hit on Kentucky Street. He had been shot in the neck. Instead of collapsing on the spot, he managed to get into a whip and drive away, trying to reach safety. His drive ended near the LSU Lakes area, but he finally stopped and called for help. That incident pushed 12 to look harder at the connection between the two locations, barely a few minutes from each other. The next shock came not long after. Another stretch of Nebraska erupted with gunfire. Reports say close to 40 rounds flew through the block. Homes took hits. Parked vehicles took hits. Somehow no one died in that burst, but the message was clear. Something linked these incidents, and whatever caused it had taken the hood hostage for the moment. Residents didn't hold back though. When cameras came around, they spoke without giving names, saying straight up that life in that pocket of Baton Rouge are dangerous and more dangerous every day. They talked about the pattern of young men hurting other young men. They talked about how they kept their kids close and wouldn't let them walk around anywhere alone. One woman said her fear set so deep she prayed every morning before stepping outside. Another man said he didn't even keep chairs on the porch anymore because sitting outside felt like inviting trouble. Worry was heavy and nobody tried to pretend it wasn't. 12 added more context when they announced a separate arrest tied to one of the retaliatory shootings. 20-year-old Derek Weiss was picked up for the alleged involvement in the burst of shots on Nebraska that damaged homes but didn't claim a life. Not long after that, detectives arrested at the time 17-year-old Keandre Ricks, known across the city as NBA Youngboy. Officers said he was tied to a drive-by on Kentucky Street that looked like a direct answer to Keandre's killing.
The shooting led to a rash of gunfire in Old South Baton Rouge in the days that followed. Last month, police arrested 20-year-old Derek Weiss in connection to a separate shooting on Nebraska. And tonight, police say they've arrested 17-year-old Keandre Ricks, a rapper known by his stage name NBA Youngboy, in connection to a drive-by shooting on Kentucky Street. Detectives believe those shootings may have been in retaliation to Ricks' death and say more arrests are possible as they continue to investigate.
I just want justice to be served.
Tonight, Taylor is praying that her son's killers are caught and hopes that other parents will learn from this tragedy and cherish every moment they have with their children.
You just tell your child you love them every day and give them a hug because you never know what the outcome. You don't know if they're going to walk out their door and come back home or not.
That piece of the puzzle told the internet what the block already knew. These shootings weren't scattered. They were reactions, retaliation for Keandre. Even as detectives worked, the case that mattered most remained the one that started everything. Who shot Keandre? Why did they target him that night? What happened before the shots rang out? Those questions sat unanswered. 12 released statements saying they believe witnesses knew more than they were saying, and they encouraged anyone with information to come forward. But in the hood, where speaking up can bring trouble to your own doorstep, silence became the shield people leaned on. 8 months passed. The scene where Keandre fell still carried marks from the night he died.
Death of an 18-year-old. Scotty Hunter spoke with the victim's mother, and here's her message tonight.
You got to bury your child. This is so wrong when people kill people's kids.
Kenya Taylor is still grieving more than a month after her son, 18-year-old Keandre Ricks, was shot and killed just steps away from his Nebraska street home.
It's like I'm dreaming and I haven't woke up yet. Like I had a bad dream. I'm just waiting on the Lord to wake me up.
Taylor walked us over to where her son's body was found, a place she's visited often, trying to make sense of the senseless killing.
Then this way he must have fell it right here. Because they had blood all right here, all up there.
I'm stuck in this world on my own.
The 18-year-old was an aspiring rapper, spending most of his time working on his lyrics. It's his rising popularity that Taylor believes may have attracted unwanted attention.
Like he was just born just to do that. Like he just was so excited, he really loved to rap. And they took his chance, they cheated him out of life. They took his chance of doing it. I still don't understand why nobody done this to him. They shot my baby down like a dog in the street.
But like every other street in Baton Rouge, life kept moving. The case remained open. Detectives kept digging. Community members kept watching their surroundings more closely. And then finally movement. On March the 28th, 2017, nearly 5 months after the shooting, officers arrested 17-year-old Treshawn Coates for second-degree murder. The announcement made headlines because it gave the public its first direct link between the suspect and Keandre's death. Investigators said they believe Keandre's killing had sparked a retaliation shooting in the days that followed. They gave weight to the idea that the Nebraska incident had triggered the chain of gunfire throughout the hood. The story was incomplete. Less than 2 weeks later, on April 8th, a second arrest was made. This time it was 27-year-old Keandre Ricks. Detectives told reporters that a witness had given a clear account of what happened that night. The statement came from someone who claimed they were present in the exact moment when the confrontation took place. According to that witness, the encounter wasn't spontaneous. They said Treshawn and Monty had planned to confront Keandre before they ever stepped outside. The witnesses described the scene as something that unfolded directly in the middle of Nebraska Street. They say Monty pulled a handgun and fired when Keandre dropped to the pavement. The witness said they stood over him and went through his pockets and shit, checking him for items before running off. The witness added that both suspects fled the area on foot immediately after. Detectives created a 6-person photo lineup and showed it to the witness. Monty was identified as the second person at the scene. That boy's description matched arrest records. With those statements, police brought charges against both suspects, placing Treshawn on a $450,000 bond, Monty on a $300,000 bond.
A second man is behind bars for a 2016 murder that led to a series of what police said were retaliation shootings. 18-year-old Keandre Ricks was shot and killed at a home on Nebraska Street last November. Later that day, a second man was found shot in the neck. This week, police arrested and charged 27-year-old Monte Carey for second-degree murder. He joined 17-year-old Treshawn Coates, who was arrested on the same charge last week. Police believe the two men confronted the victim last year and allegedly shot him before running off. Carey is being held on a $300,000 bond.
For the first time, the pieces looked like they were lining up. There was a timeline. There were 2 identified suspects. There was a witness who placed both men directly in the confrontation, and both arrests were tied back to the crime that sparked the violence across Old South Baton Rouge. But BR cases don't always follow a clean path, and this one was no different. By late July, the case reached the grand jury. Prosecutors presented the information, the witness statement, the reported sequence of events, the alleged motive, the pattern of retaliation that followed. But when the grand jury members finished reviewing the evidence, they chose not to indict either suspect. The decision didn't clear him. It also didn't move the case toward trial. It placed the situation in a gray area, leaving both suspects unindicted yet not released from suspicion.
2 men accused of killing a teenager 8 months ago have escaped formal charges. It's a decision made by a grand jury Thursday. Scotty Hunter is in the alert center tonight. And Scotty, the 2 suspects may not be off the hook?
Yeah, Donna, not enough evidence. That's why the 2 men weren't indicted, but prosecutors tonight say they aren't giving up. A grand jury has failed to indict 2 men for the shooting death of 18-year-old Keandre Ricks. Ricks was gunned down on Nebraska Street in November, just blocks from his home. 18-year-old Treshawn Coates and 28-year-old Monte Carey are accused of killing Ricks, but without enough evidence, at least for now, won't face a trial. The victim's mother, Keandre Taylor, says hearing the news took her breath away.
I'm just really lost for words. I just don't really know what to say. I just pray to God that he stepped in and intervened.
The suspects, though, aren't quite out of the woods yet. Prosecutors now have the chance to collect more evidence and bring it back before a grand jury.
We intend to take it back if we can find some more witnesses or we can obtain any other evidence.
Chief of Litigations with the District Attorney's Office, Dana Cummings, says they're leaving no stone unturned to find new clues, even asking for the public's help.
It's so critical that people that have information come forward, even if they don't think that the information they have is that important to the case. A lot of times we can put together bits and pieces that get us where we need to go.
It's a plea this mother knows all too well, something she's been begging the community for months. If no one comes forward, the alternative, she says, is too hard to imagine.
If they get out, I feel they're going to think, well, I got away with this, so I can go do this to somebody else. And then somebody else will be going through the same thing I'm going through.
As for the 2 suspects, Taylor says she's working hard to arrive at forgiveness, but for now, she's only interested in justice.
I just want them to sit in jail for the rest of their lives and think about what they've done to my son.
Prosecutors said publicly that the case wasn't finished. They stated they intended to continue looking for more information or cooperation or more evidence that could strengthen the file enough to return to a future grand jury. They urged residents to speak up, saying even small pieces of information could help. No matter how intensely officials pushed, the hood's silence was stronger, and that's part of BR. The streets don't talk. From there, the story froze in time. No one else was arrested. No new witnesses stepped forward. No new evidence was made public. The case remained officially open, but stalled, locked in a place where nothing moved and nothing closed. The only part of the story that never changed was the beginning. Keandre's life ended on a street he walked in childhood. Articles made it clear that he wasn't someone living soft, though. He wasn't cruising, floating through life untouched by the streets around him. He was a youngin' navigating through the harsh environments and mean grimy streets of BR, moving in circles that came with consequences. He had his talents, his challenges, his history with the law, and his ambition. He was not simple, not one-dimensional, not someone who fit neatly into a box. The hood remembers the night he died in its own way. Some people talk about the sound of the shots. Others talk about waking up to police calls blocking the streets. Some remember seeing officers mark the pavement before sunrise. Others remember the wave of violence that followed. And everyone remembers the feeling that the killing was bigger than one person, that it cracked open something that had been building for a while. Night where an 18-year-old fell in the road, and the sound of that moment spread across multiple streets, multiple families, and multiple lives. It remains tied to retaliation, investigations, and a stalled case that never reached the closure people hoped for. Even without the finished ending, the significance is clear. The story is a part of the bigger picture about young men in BR working to navigate the hood where conflicts escalate quickly, where choices carry heavy weight, and where bloodshed and murder can appear without warning. It's a story about what happens when tensions overlap with access to weapons, when friendships turn complicated, when fear keeps the truth locked away. The block hasn't forgotten. The city still remembers the waves of gunfire that followed, and people still talk about the case as one of the moments that show how fast life can change in Old South Baton Rouge. That night remains a marker, a turning point in a chain of events, beginning with a teenager riding down a familiar street and ended with a community left holding questions that never found answers.